Hello everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Yes, good evening and welcome to
Hello, good evening.
welcome to the session today. So our guest speaker is not here yet. While we're waiting for him, I guess we should just you all know the purpose of this meeting. We want to understand the day in the life in a data scientist. Today we're having Akoyemi as our guest speaker. So we'll be sharing with us on a couple of stuff. So while we're waiting for him, I just want to ask us a few things, specifically the CGA interns in our midst. Okay, so far I want to know how the program is going for you. What are the challenges you have met with at the moment? And I mean, up until this moment, are there any challenges that you've encountered? So I just want you guys to share your experience so far, the goods and the bad. So I think we should just start with that. Then once our speaker joins us, we would switch immediately. So tell me, who wants to go first? Yes, yes, yes. Anybody?
Good evening, sir. My
Yes,
name is
good evening.
Samayo. So for me, one major challenge I've had is trying to reconcile the meeting links and staying up to date majorly, because sometimes I get lost in the classroom. Probably because we have like about four classrooms now: the AI class, the data class, the onboarding class, and then our previous screening class. So sometimes I have to go through all the four of them to make sure I stay up to date and find relevant links to join the relevant session. For example, this particular one, I had to join in from the WhatsApp group. If not, I would have been lost on trying to find the link, shuffling through the different classrooms.
Okay, it's good you talked about this because I think a few others are also having that challenge. Well, it can be quite daunting navigating classroom, especially when you're taking a number of classes. So I think one of the fastest ways to keep up is check your emails regularly. Okay, make sure you are receiving notifications. So once you see an update in your Gmail or your email, obviously your Gmail, once you see the notification, try to check what class that notification is coming from. You get, and then with that you can keep up. Thankfully for you guys, you don't receive so many emails as students. You need to see what we the teachers, the number of email notifications from classroom we get. Anyone who comments on classroom on any of the classes, we get notified. You send a private comment or a general comment, we get the notifications. You submit a task, we get it. You submit an assignment, we get it. Anything you are doing at all, you know you are keeping track of it via the notifications. So but for you guys, the notifications are quite fewer. Only when an instructor sends a message or comments or posts something or there's an update, and only on such occasions do you guys actually get comments. So yeah, you can use the emails to quickly know what is going on within the classes. And then secondly, um, there's no better way to understand what is going on within the classes than to actually spend time in classroom. So take your time, just try to familiarize yourselves with each of the classes on classroom. Like you said now, Samuel, um, you have four classes now that you are currently navigating between. So um, for each of the classes, just check the to-do list. Okay, check the agenda, any schedule that has been posted, check it just to be sure. Okay, and then try to go to your Google Calendar and make sure that the meetings are showing up on your calendars, and then set reminders. Just like I posted on the group chats earlier today, I said you can actually edit reminders. So generally, I think the games account, in creating most of the meetings, I think they just automatically set all notifications to 30 minutes before each meeting. So you can adjust the notifications, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours, just to make sure that you're keeping track. And of course, you can also add more than one notification. You can add two, three, or more notifications in case you want to be getting, notified every 30 minutes or every 1 hour that you are going to be having a meeting by so time. So check your Google Calendar, make sure that the schedule is showing up there. If you have any issues, you can always send a message. We'll try to see how we can fix that. You get. So yes, familiarize yourself with the classes on Classroom. Try to check, the schedules, specifically where we post schedules, meeting schedules. Check it, so be sure of the time, and then sync that with your. Make sure it is synced with your Google Calendar. Even if it means you setting up alarms for the various sessions, do that. Okay. So I think the slight challenge that might exist at the moment is that we have not done long-term creation of schedules. So it's like we're still doing weekly schedules. For example, I posted the schedule for this week. Apart from the guest sessions we have that we already posted since last week. Okay, the classes I'm going to be having with you guys this week in the AI session class, I posted that schedule. I think was that this morning? Yes, this morning for the week. So, um, but after some time, once there's the confirmation of dates for you know on the long term, and we know that guest sessions will not coincide with with the main program and all of that. Once we can plan all those things ahead, then we'll post all those schedules. We can post maybe for the next 3 weeks or the next even a month. So we have a couple of guests that are going to be coming on board. The schedule for most of them are not confirmed yet. Okay, so once they're confirmed, you'll be getting all those details. So, is there any other question? Let me attend to. Yes, so please send your questions. Send your questions while we're
Good
waiting for.
evening.
Yes, please. Good evening.
Okay, so I have a similar problem with Samuel, but and you've made nice suggestions, but I was just thinking that is it possible for us to have, especially for our life classes, to have like a fixed time? Because for example, someone like me now, I normally have like I don't have a fixed schedule, so things can just come up randomly during the week, and I have to like fix time for this thing. So if, for example, I know that okay, on Saturdays by 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. I'm having CGA classes, so it's going to just like subconsciously I know I don't have to like start checking every single time. So is it possible to have like a specific time that we have classes?
Okay, like I mentioned before,
Um,
sorry, Enoch, let me quickly answer this, then I will hand over to you. As I mentioned before, l- Saturdays are mainly for live classes, so just have that at the back of your mind. Even for the CGI guys, Saturdays are live classes. So, and then yes, like you said, it would be good to have that fixed schedule during the week, specifically during the week, so that others can make up, can get set for that. Okay, so just know for now, Saturdays are fixed for live classes. You get to prepare your mind towards that, especially in the morning by 10 a.m. Depending on whether it is data track or AI track. AI track will be by 2 p.m. Then the rest of the day, the rest of the week, schedules will be coming up until we can really fix schedules. Okay, thank you very much for that. Enoch, over to you. Mr. Koyeme, I can see you are in the meeting already. You're welcome to the meeting. So I guess we can start in earnest.
I'm sorry. Good evening. Ish.
okay.
Should I continue?
Oh, go on, go on.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Those classes, the AI and BA1, where it's joined together with the CGI people, right? The
Yes,
the
yes. like I mentioned before, the part ones for each track, whether it is CG or CGI, because of the similar content, the classes are joined together. So there's only one class for this
Okay.
data and
Answer.
BA. There's only one
Yes.
class for that's part one, both CG and CGI.
Okay, what to answer it? Hmm?
I didn't get that.
I don't understand. Are we to answer the questions? There are some questions that we are supposed to answer that is due. There's one due on 15. There's another one due
Yes,
on
yes,
the
please.
8th. Are
Yes,
we supposed?
yes. Any task you see there now is composed for everyone. You understand? So answer the questions and complete the task on
Okay,
assignments.
okay, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I don't know if you all can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Where with you?
Okay, so I hope you guys had a wonderful day, stress-free, except those of us who are in Lagos. Such a pity. Sorry. Yeah, the traffic and everything. So, I want to welcome each and every one of us to this session we have for this time. Please, on behalf of the team, I seriously want to apologize. It was supposed to be for 3, but because of our guest speaker, he had to squeeze his time, and he said the only time that will be favorable a little bit for him is now. So that's why we shifted the class from 3 to now. So we sincerely want to apologize. So without wasting any time, I just want to read brief about the guest speaker for tonight. Trust me, his resume is really, really, really good. And so, Mr. Opayemi, first of all, he's a data scientist and also an analyst engineer skilled in modern data stack with the solid grips of the industry best practice. He's a data scientist at Cowrie Wise, currently building a modern data stack from the scratch on the journey to creating a data-driven organization for one of the leading fintechs in Nigeria. Outside work, he is a community advocate who is passionate about democratizing data knowledge to everyone and constantly providing mentorship and guidance to data enthusiasts on how to navigate and transition in data and analytics space. Currently, he founded a data tribe known as Young Data Professionals that comprises of smart, young, and energetic data lovers across different levels of expertise, where they discuss data matters, provide solution to members, then challenging tasks, and also help one another to sharpen technical skills and stay updated with the global trend in the analytics space. Okay, so today he is already shared on the screen. He's going to be carrying us on a topic, a day in the data life of the day in the life of a data geek. I beg your pardon, which he'll be sharing his experience of getting into the data science field and his journey so far, and of his day-to-day activities in his workspace, including technical details, the kind of problem that he has solved, and also the various tools he has been using. So please, I would like, I don't know if Mr. Opayemi is ready to take over the floor. Thank you, sir.
All right. Good evening. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right.
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you. Let me just go ahead and share my screen and let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. First and foremost, I would like to sincerely apologize for the inconveniences. Just as Mr. Zion has said, I was supposed to host this session by 3 p.m. But so I really do apologize for the inconveniences caused. And I also want to say a very big thank you for hosting me, for having me to facilitate this session, just to basically talk around what's in the life of a data geek. And just as the host has rightly mentioned, I currently work as a data scientist with Carrywise. And prior to joining Carrywise, I worked as a data science and analytics consultant with Deloitte, which about what my day kind of looked like in the consulting space, as well as now in the industry, which is in the fintech space, how data science basically has evolved, and what the future basically is going to look like. So, the cruise of my presentation, I'm talking about my transitioning into data science, how it was, and probably some learning experience you can pick from it. Things I would have learned, I would have done better if I had the opportunity to start out again. And I'll also be talking about the current state of data science role in the Nigerian space, as well as the data science skill stack I use presently in my current role, which will tie to what I'll be talking about, the rise of analytics engineers, which most of the time is an offshoot of data scientists because of the problem I will explain later on. And one of the things I'll also be talking about is the future of data science and how you can manage your stakeholders, because one of the pain points you would actually face as a data scientist in any industry is the fact that most of your stakeholders don't understand this technology. Yes, they've read on Harvard Business Review how that data science is going to revolutionize all the things they're going to do. They've read or seen a lot of fanciful stuff and all of those things. So they think and assume that you are ready for AI and data science, whereas they are not. So there'll be a lot of expectations, a lot of pressures from stakeholders, which is why how to manage your stakeholders, which is where ability to communicate, as well as things you need to know so as not to burn out. Because trust me, it can be very, very easy to burn out because you are trying to manage your stakeholder expectation. You are trying to deliver such that they can easily see that you are bringing value to the table. So which is why I think there was a research that says that a lot of data scientists are actually very early because there seems to be a lot of, they don't get fulfillment based on what they meet in the industry, which I'll also talk around. Then I will now talk about what my day look like and project I work on, basically how my day go. Then I'll give room for question. Now, this session is supposed to be for 30 to 40 minutes so that I can question and answer. So my transitioning into data science. Now, my transitioning was a bit very adversarial. I didn't study anything relating to data science. I had a background in electrical engineering, and I didn't do programming. So for the sake of those that may say, oh, probably you're already exposed to programming, I had zero knowledge of programming. The only programming course I did in university was in 200 level, and that was Fortran. And we actually didn't even use computer system or a laptop to do the Fortran. We actually did it paper and pencil. And I can practically say after the exam, I forgot everything I did in that course. So actually I had zero knowledge in programming, zero knowledge in statistics, and all of those things. So during my penultimate year, my final year, I actually had a first class. I finished a first class. But it all dawned on me that realize that the future of work or the labor market or the job market, as we often say, skill driven, not certificate driven. Yes, I have a first class from University of Ibadan, first and the best, as they often say. But I don't think I was ready at that point to compete to actually attract any employer. I didn't have any skill any employer could say. So the only thing I had at that point was my grade. But no employer will recruit me because I finished the first class. Nobody cares. My first class will not bring money to the table, will not drive revenue for any business. So that means it all dawned on me that I spent my 5 years in university building without acquiring the right skill that I needed for the job market. So I had to find a way to close that gap, which is learn that will make me relevant in the job market? Which skill can I pick up such that I won't strive so much before getting a job? And during my research, I came in contact with data science, analytics, and all of those things. And it's kind of interested me then. I started taking a couple of courses here and there. And as I said, my journey is a bit haphazard in the sense that there were no academy when I started out. Academy like this would help you to channel your learning. You probably will be learning the necessary things you need to learn to get started and prepare yourself for a job, for a data science job. But when I started out, there were actually no academy out there. So that means all I just had was just the internet. Plethora of resources on Udemy, on Coursera, on YouTube. And it was just all over the place. So that means I was just taking different courses here and there. I'll take this one, I'll stop it, I'll start this one. I was just jumping on several courses. So there was nobody as aware to guide me. So it was a bit varied. So which is one lesson, an academy like that, all thanks to an academy like this, which you leverage on the experience of your facilitator, because your facilitator are professionals in the industry, attainable. They will give you the right information you need. So you won't struggle to just go and start consuming information that are not necessary, that are not useful. So which is one thing I encourage anybody that wants to start out, because I didn't start out that way. My journey was kind of haphazard. So first is defining your learning path. So even though, yes, I already had at the back of my mind that I want to become a data scientist, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. Yes, I did a lot of research. They told me you learn this. I was able to see that, I'll learn Python, I'll learn SQL, I'll learn Excel. I'll just learn a couple of things and all of those things. So made was, I didn't stay focused. I had what is called information overload. There were a lot of resources out there that still come up with scholarship. I would jump at it. Coursera will release one scholarship, I would jump at it. So I was jumping from one course to another course, and that's impacted my learning curve, my learning growth. So that means what will take me, let's say, a month to learn from one course to another course, I actually could learn one thing probably in 3-4 months. So it actually took me time to learn. And another thing is also the fact that I wasn't learning by doing. I was learning I finish one course, I go to another course. I finish one course, I go to another course. I finish one course, I go to another course, which was basically how I learned. But now, anyone that wants to learn, I'll tell most people, if you want to learn, join an academy. That's the easiest and the best way you will learn, so as to save yourself stress. Join an academy, which I'm sure you are already part of one. Follow all the process, everything you'll be taught, because all your facilitator will give you just the right information you need. And the best learning process is learning by doing. So you learn the fundamental. Once you learn the fundamental, you get your hands dirty with a project just to help you solidify the knowledge. Those are the things I didn't have. And also, another thing was, after it just kind of took me like a year before I finally got my bearing. Now imagine I've wasted like a year. I started like 2017. All of 2017 to 2018, I was just doing many things. I didn't have any direction at all. All thanks to Data Science Nigeria. I think that was when Data Science Nigeria opened up in 2018, and I was part of the first set of people that participated in the Data Science Nigeria bootcamp in 2018. So that was what kind of gave me direction on things I needed to learn, that community. So I tell people, join a community, because as much as possible, it's a field that is fast-paced. There are a lot of things you need to learn. So it's very easy to get overwhelmed with resources, with learning. But it's easier if you have a community whereby you guys are learning together, you are growing together, you are able to motivate each other, you're able to stir each other and inspire each other to be better. And most importantly, you have mentors, you have people that are way ahead of you that are able to guide you. So that kind of help you to more or less channel your learning. So that's basically how my data science journey basically looked like. Like I said, it was a bit haphazard, in which I would want you to pick 1 or 2 lessons from there. The first thing, you want to define your learning path first. Become a data scientist or a data analyst, which most of the time is dependent on your area of interest. Most people in the tech net, they are not the core technical folks. Yes, they want to dive into the data space, but they would rather prefer to stay more in the business side of things, but only learn some little bit of analytics to drive it. While some folks are the nerd, they prefer to go all into the technical stuff, the programming stuff, and all of those things. So which is why, as much as possible, based on your area of interest, based on your personality, you want to look, fine, am I the tech guy that would want to go all into the technical stuff of doing all the core machine learning and all of those things? Or I think I'm the guy that would want to stay in the business side of things, or say I want to become a data analyst or a business analyst, that I want to still be in my business domain, use analytics into what I would want to do. So based on your kind of person, you want to choose a learning path or a career path. So when I started out, I think because of my engineering background, it was easy for me to say, okay, fine, I think I want to go into the core technical stuff, which is core data science, machine learning, and all of those things. And that's basically how my learning journey into data science looked like. Now, before I go into what I currently do in CarryWise, I would explain what the current state of the data science role is. Now, Mr. Zaid, actually, I think there was a post that went back that was so popular on LinkedIn at the point around instances where data scientists are functioning as a data engineer. I can remember the way Mr. Zaid put it, that if you find yourself as a data scientist doing some kind of task, then definitely you are doing two-man job and paid, and you are being paid for one person. When I saw the post, I was laughing because that actually explained my current state. Now, just to give you a perspective around the current state of, so I was just laughing when you put that post out that way. I was like, this man doesn't even know this is my current state. I was just laughing. So just to put a perspective around the data science role in Nigeria. Now, and I think it's also applied in the global space. This was a report that was released last year. Job role in the data profession, the data analyst, the data scientist, the data engineer, and the likes. And what was interesting is that it was discovered that the data science job actually grew by 10% last year, as against the 80% growth year by year that occurred in 2018, 2019. So that means in 2018, 2019, the demand for data scientists was on the increase. It grew like 80%. But in 2020, there was like a decline. It only grew by 10%. So the increase last year, based on that report, was that the demand for data engineers now rapidly grew. So that means data engineering as a role now became the new data scientist, the new data science in terms of hype. So before, in 2017, 2018, 2019, it was data science that was actually like the hype. Data science is the new oil and all of those things. But now, the hype now suddenly switched to data engineering. So as you can see, the report now says data engineering roles grew rapidly in 2020 as against, as you can see, this was actually what the report looked like. So you can see that data science role was actually what was in this graph, was in the lowest cadre. And why is that the case? Like I said, bring me to what my current role is in CarryWise. Now, why is that the case? Now, according to the AI hierarchy of needs, now this is like a popular article that was written by Monica Rogadix. If you read this article, it's amazing. Just search AI hierarchy of needs. Now, she says something out that just want to explore, want to dive into using analytics, using all those fanciful algorithms of AI, all those stuff they've heard about, deep learning, and all of those things. Meanwhile, they've not solved the most important aspect of the puzzle in order to enjoy all those stuff, which is, now this is called the pyramid, the hierarchy of needs. Now, just to give a perspective on what the hierarchy of needs basically means. Similar to human hierarchy of needs. So as human, before we can have our self-actualization, there's what our basic needs to be met. We talk about our physical needs, shelter, food. We talk about our psychological needs, as well as our emotional needs. Before we now talk about that, we've arrived as our self-actualization. That, okay, fine, I think I'm fulfilled as a person. So before you can say you are fulfilled as a person, that means your fundamental needs, your physical needs are met, your emotional needs are met, your psychological needs are met, before you now say you are self-actualized as an individual. So the same thing, in that similar fashion, the same thing also applies to the hierarchy of needs. So that means before any organization can become data-driven, before they can say they want to start doing data science stuff, AI stuff, and all of those things, you see that there is something that needs to be met, which is there is need to have the right infrastructure in place, which is what is called, they have to have the right processes in place that supports collecting the right kind of data, They have to have the right infrastructure in place that ensure that the right proper data is stored. If all of these things are not in place, if they don't have, let's say, a workflow in place that support how data moves from one source to another source, then there's nothing analytics, there's nothing data scientists can do. So that means a data scientist that get recruited in an organization that does not have this pyramid need solved, which is data collection is not in place, the right data storage is not in place that will support data movement or data workflow from one source to a particular destination, then there's nothing that data scientists can do. There's no model that data scientists can do, because you can only model a data that is available. But when there's no data for you when there's no data available for you to model, trust me, your role as data scientist will probably be frustrating, because you don't have any data available for you to model. Then you have to be the person that will solve that hierarchy of need, which is data collection, data storage, which is solving the whole infrastructure. Why it seems as though now this role basically look like the data engineering role, because the data engineer that probably would ensure data infrastructure in place, ensure that data pipelines to support data provisioning for the data analyst or data scientist to use. But now, an organization that didn't recruit a data engineer, you probably are the first data scientist or the data professional or data analyst they are recruiting, and there's no data available for you to work with. What do? There will now be a high demand for data scientists that have what is called adjacent skills. So that means organization will now need, in as much as, like I said, many stakeholders don't know these things. Stakeholders or management just want to start driving and gleaning insight out of all of these things data science can do. They are not ready for those things because they don't have those. They don't have the right ingredient that will support and drive data science analytics in their organization, and that's why data scientists that have adjacent skills will be in high demand. So that means a data scientist that is able to do the role of a data engineer in code. That means you're able to build your data pipeline yourself, make data ready for yourself before you can now start building your machine learning algorithm. Now, just to place a caveat, that is not the ideal. See, that is the reality currently in most industry, but that is not the ideal. So that means in an ideal organization that is data-driven, a full-fledged data team where you have a data engineer, data available in terms of building data pipelines, you have a data scientist who is just focusing on building statistical model to support predictive analytics, and you probably have a data analyst who is focused on gleaning insight out of data that is available from the past and simplifying, getting all those insights and patterns from the data, answering ad hoc requests from the business. Okay, fine. How's our business fare in the last 3 months? Or what is the demography of our customer base and all of those things. Now, that is the ideal, but that is not the reality currently in Nigeria. So most of the time, an organization that wants to start out to say, okay, fine, we want to become data-driven. We want to start making decisions that are data-driven. Most of the time, they probably will recruit just one person, or at best 2. But most often than not, they probably recruit one person. So that means the data scientist or data analyst will now be the one to find each bearing to ensure all of these things are in place. Like I said, that is not supposed to be. It's not the ideal, but it seems to be the reality in most organizations. And that is why a data scientist or a data analyst that is able to learn some basic adjacent skill would more or less be in high demand as against a data scientist that only have modeling skills, basically. And now, that brings me to what is called the rise of a new role. Now, the new role that is rapidly growing now is basically to solve all of this puzzle. Now, remember the initial puzzle I created here? You have AI at the top of the pyramid. Now, replace AI with data science solutions or data analytics solution and all of those things. So that means, like I said, before any organization can start gleaning insight out of AI, data science, machine learning, and all of those things, all the need in the pyramid has to be met. Talking about data injection, how data move from one source to another destination, have data storage in place, which is data warehouse, have the right data transformation in place before a data scientist can now start enjoying the data that is available. Now, because we know that many organizations actually are not ready yet, for many reasons. One of the reasons is the fact that there's a lot of investment that need to go in order to build a data team. So that means they need to hire folks and all of those things. Many organizations want to manage costs, and that's why they would just prefer to hire one person. And that's why the new role called analytics engineering is now basically growing in order to help data scientists in quotes problem to make their work easier. So that means me as a data scientist, if I get in an organization that does not have the right data storage in place, the right data infrastructure in place, the right data provisioning in place for me to start building my model, for me not to start waiting or become redundant or useless in quotes, I can learn all those adjacent skills that will support what I need to do, such that I may not necessarily be a data engineer, but I can do the necessary basic stuff to meet my needs, to make my data available for me, to be able to build my data, my machine learning algorithm, and all of those things, all of the insight I need to glean out of the data. And that's basically what analytics engineering is doing. It's basically equipping data professionals, data scientists, data analysts, such that with little technical capability, they are able to solve all the problem in the pyramid base, which is they're able to know how to manage infrastructure. They're able to know how to build data pipelines that will support their data, that will provide data that they need for their analysis or for their modeling, as the case may be. And that's basically what the whole analytics engineering is basically all about. Like I said, it's basically growing, which is why most of the time data scientists or data analysts will be the ones to grow to this role. You know, like somebody will just come and say, okay, I'm an analytics engineer. Most of the time, because of the need of an organization, a data scientist or a data analyst would grow into that particular role in order to meet the need of an organization. So now, what are the skills? Now, to now bring it home to myself, what do I do? What are the skills? What do I do in Carrywide? I found myself in that scenario where I was recruited as data scientist, and there were a lot of things wasn't in place. So that means the need for me to build infrastructure, build data pipelines that will make data available for me to now start building my machine learning algorithm. And that is why most of these tools that I use are centered around SQL. And which is why most of my posts have been around data professionals to learn SQL. Yes, in as much as if you are in an ideal organization, if you are lucky enough to probably join a data team, a data scientist will not be heavy on SQL because that's necessarily not your role. But if that is not the case, then having SQL in your armory is a very, very good skill you would definitely need. Now, Python is a tool. Definitely, as a data scientist, you definitely use Python R, but I use Python because of how robust Python is for development, for deployment, and all of those things. So I use Python. A new tool that I just started using, which was not in my pipeline, which was not in my skill stack before, is dbt. And like I said, because of the need to work basically like a data engineer, so even though I don't have the skill of a data engineer, but I can do some basic stuff data engineers would do. I can build data models. I can build some basic data warehouse skills, all thanks to this tool, which is called dbt. Now, dbt is a tool that was founded 4 years ago, and trust me, it's an amazing tool that basically help your data transformation. Now, let me come back here in the hierarchy of needs. Now, in the hierarchy of needs, talk about data collection, data storage, which is a data warehouse. The next thing in the pipeline is in the hierarchy of needs is data transformation. As we all know, it is often said that 60% or 70% of the work of a data scientist or a data analyst is in data preparation. Now, dbt as a tool has made that data transformation very, very, very easy. And interestingly, it is built on SQL. So that means if you know how to use SQL, dbt is a tool you can easily learn. And you can integrate it into any data warehouse. So that means any data warehouse that you are working with, whatever data that you need that you are ingesting from a particular source, let's say a data is coming from, say, MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server, which we know they are called OLTP. They are basically transactional database. They are not, even though you can do basic analytics. But as your data grow and as your analytics become complex, there are limits to what you can do with all these database, your MySQL, your Postgres, your MySQL server, and all of those things. So as your data grow and as your analytics need grow, those databases will not serve you anymore. So that means you need a bigger data storage only for analytics. And that's where your data warehouse comes in, which is called OLAP or OLTP system. That's where you talk about your Databricks, your BigQuery, and all of those things. Now, the interesting thing about DBT is that you can connect it to any of the data warehouse. So that means as your data is being ingested from a database, let's say MySQL, a data warehouse, you need to do your data transformation before you can use it for any analysis, whether to build your dashboard or to build your data model, to build your machine learning algorithm. Now, DBT as a tool make it easy for you such that you can automate and do your data transformation very easy, such that you won't spend a bulk of your time. The data scientists won't spend the bulk of his or her time doing data transformation or data cleaning again, because you've done all of those things already, all thanks to DBT tool. Now, another thing I also, which is like a soft skill, not a technical skill, is good communication skill. Now, I can't overemphasize this. Like I said, because of the fact that coders are non-technical people, and not only that, because many of them don't really understand how the old data profession work, how data analytics, data science work. Many of them, yes, they can relate to software engineering and all of those things, but not many of them have that education. They are not well literate regarding how data work. They don't understand that before you can get value out of data, before you can start bringing insight out of data, it will take time. Spend your 1 month, 2 months trying to prepare your data, making all the necessary things ready. But your stakeholder wants to start seeing value immediately. How do you manage the expectation such that you don't get to be seen as someone that is not doing anything, right? Which is why a good communication skill as well as a good presentation skill is needed as a data scientist in order to make your work seamless, so as not to get frustrated on your job. Whereas you are doing a lot of work, you are working very hard, but it's just that too bad. Stakeholders are not seeing what you are doing because they can't even see what you are doing. You can spend weeks modeling your data. You can spend weeks and they can't see something tangible yet. How do you make them know that you're actually doing stuff? And that's why you need to have a good communication skill. And one thing that have helped me is I do a lot of documentation. So I do a lot of documentation, a lot of presentation. So if I'm working now, I let them see the roadmap of what I need to do. I let them see the impact of what I need to do, why I need to do what I need to do, and how long it needs to take me to do what I need to do. So I basically carry them along in the pipeline such that at every point in time, they'll know what I'm doing, even though they may not have all the technical details of what I'm doing. They're able to understand, okay, fine, this is what you are doing at this point in time. They're able to ask me for updates. How is it going? Do we have any blockers and all of those things? And that's where a good communication skill will save you a whole lot of tension, a whole lot of pressure, because you're able to manage them appropriately. To communicate, trust me, you will struggle. If you don't know how to communicate what you are doing, if you don't know how to, communication is actually a very, very good skill. I can't overemphasize. All of this technical stuff are very good, but trust me, if you have all of this technical stuff and you don't have good communication skill, you would actually have a hard time in any role, in any company you work with, because you would need to find a way to communicate the technical stuff you are doing to the non-technical folks. How do you make them see value in what you are doing and all of those things? And that's basically where your good communication skill. The next thing you also need to have is basic software engineering skill. Now, I said basic. You are not a software engineer. So that means there are limits to what you need to know. So that means basic software engineering skill, like let's say version controlling, say Docker, just basic. There are little you need to know just to understand how we basically work. Excuse me. And most importantly, continuous learning. So that means there will always be things you need to learn. There will always be things, new ways to make your work more efficient. There will always be things you need to adopt to optimize what you've done previously. And that's where continuous learning, basically how my skill stack basically look like currently in my current role. I use SQL to do my data extraction. I use Python to do my data transformation, to do my modeling. I use dbt for my data transformation and build my dimension modeling in the data warehouse. And communication skills to be able to manage my stakeholders, to let them know what I'm doing in synergy with good documentation skills. So you need to know how to document well. Like you need to know how to document. So the next thing I'll basically I've been explained that is the future of data science. I've also buttressed that, as well as stakeholder management. Now, what the future basically look like is the fact that many organizations are still in their awareness stage. A lot of organizations still lack data maturity. They still have data sitting all over in silos. A lot of them just don't even know how data can support their business. That means they don't even have the right data strategy in place. So a lot of organizations are still trying to move in that awareness stage. They're still trying to understand, this is what data can do for us. They're also still trying to solve the problem of the hierarchy of need, which is the base problem, structural problem, and all of those things. And that is why, as organizations solve that, as they move from that awareness stage, during the whole, to start growing in their data journey, organizations now become aware and they solve their data infrastructure problem. There will now be a need. There's going to now be a surge in the need for data scientists, because now organizations now have solved the most important problem. And that's why it seems as though there was a decline in the need for data scientists, because they feel that, we're recruiting, they thought all they did were data scientists. They brought in data scientists, they only discovered that, they were not ready. So now, once they now have that awareness that, okay, fine, we need to solve the base pyramid problem of the hierarchy of needs to ensure that we have the right data strategy in place, we have the right data processes in place, we have the right data storage that would help us. Then now, once those things are in place, there will now be need for people that have the skill to be able to drive whether that descriptive analytics or predictive analytics, which is the realm of the data scientists, the future holds. So learning data science at a time such as this, definitely there will still be a surge in the demand for data scientists, because organizations are still growing. They are still iterating. They are still trying to understand how all of this unfold, how all of this work. And according to a report that was released by KPMG in early 2020, now they did a research to understand Nigeria capability for Nigeria data maturity. You can check that report. It's an amazing report. That will let you see how that many organizations are actually not ready. They are not ready for analytics yet. They are growing. They are trying to tap into it, because trust me, a lot of investments need a lot of education, a lot of data literacy need to go in before any organization can become data driven. So that means before any data scientist can come in and start building all of those awesome data models, all of those awesome machine learning algorithms, building all of those fanciful dashboard and all of those things, some things need to be in place, which is why it's a journey. Organization would move from their traditional way of doing things to becoming data-driven or insight-driven. So now, I'll basically now end on what my day look like and project. Now, my day, most of the time, like I said, I'm basically doing two different stuff. The first stuff is doing data infrastructure work, basically trying to build the whole pipeline from scratch, or do data injection, all our data sources from different sources, let's say MySQL, from say Google Analytics, from all different sources, and trying to ingest them into a big, what is called a data lake or a data warehouse, build data model around those data. So I'm basically doing that. So my day basically structured around building data infrastructure by the side. Now, the other side of my day basically is around supporting the business for business data requests. So what do I mean by data requests? Now, the product manager that basically gives direction on the new product we need to come up with, the new feature we need to add. So we have, let's say, the product team. We have the growth team, which are basically people that drive how the brand grow. how are people using our brand, want to drive more people to use our products, want to acquire new customers. So that means we have growth team. So I definitely will have a lot of requests. Then definitely I have the stakeholders, my CEO, my CTO, the finance manager, and every other person. The public can reach out to me and say, oh, okay, want to understand the number of people that have used this particular product in the last, let's say, 6 months. Let's say that's just a request from, let's say, from the product team. Or the product team can say, oh, we launched this particular product called Money Duo. So Money Duo is one of our products for spouse, for couples to save together. So let's say we launched this product early this year, February, and once okay, fine, the product team can say, we just launched this product in February to understand, drive our AUM. Our AUM is basically asset under management. More money people have with us. So okay, fine. What is the impact of this product that we launched in February? What is the current AUM as a firm, and what is the impact of that product that was launched in February? So that's a request from the product team, and I need to be able to answer those data requests. I need to be able to provide solution, provide answer to those questions. Okay, fine. Oh, this is the impact of the product that was launched, and this is how we are faring. Or the growth team and say, okay, fine. The growth team can reach out to me and say, oh, we want to launch a campaign targeted to say the Gen Z, and we know who the Gen Z are. The probably would ask me, what is the population of Gen Z that have saved on Carrywise, and what is the average of the amount they save or they invest on our platform? So that's the question. So that means they want to churn out a campaign, but they want to more or less support with data to have an idea of what the data is saying before they go ahead with the campaign and all of those things. So that's basically what my day-to-day look like. Of things where I'm building the data pipeline, building the infrastructure, and all of those things, as well as attend to data requests. So that means I can wake up tomorrow morning and I already have a long list of requests from different people, from my CEO, requests from the product managers, requests from the growth people, and other requests basically. So in an instance where I don't have any requests, which is almost impossible, for days I don't have any requests, I'm doing the infrastructure things. But days I have loads of requests, I have to find a way to prioritize, which is why one of the skills you also need to learn is ability to prioritize and ability to say no, which is very key. Now, there are times reach out to me for some requests, and some of those requests may not be possible, not because those things are not possible, but because we actually don't have data available to answer that kind of question. And that's why you need to be able to know how to manage and tell them, oh, sorry, what you are asking will not be possible because of this and this. So you need to be able to know how to say a no, how to turn down and tell them, oh, and as well as how to prioritize. So imagine if you have like 10 requests from different people. How do you prioritize and say, this is the request I need to attend to first before I attend to this request, and all of those things. So you also need to learn how to prioritize. So that's basically how my day basically look like. And lastly, for enthusiasts, those that are just learning, trying to break into the field, just know that it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a lifelong journey. So you don't need to pressure yourself. Just give it time. Just go at your pace. Continue to learn, continue to build expertise. You are actually learning a relevant skill, a skill that is sought after, that every organization, any data professional in any organization is a pillar in any organization, because if you are let's assume you are letting go anybody in the organization, you actually will not be in the list of the first list of people they will think about, because you actually play a key role in the organization. So keep learning. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Thank you for listening. I think I'll give room for question now.
Wow. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Kwame. That was
Thank
amazing.
you.
That was amazing.
Thank you.
So, you know what, guys, what I want us to do now, just turn on your mics, And let us give him a round of applause. Okay, can we do that? Wow, that was impressive. Thank you for clearly communicating those details.
Thank you.
So at least our interns have heard um, from an additional person, and so I guess they'll be reinforcing these knowledge and insights you've shared. Okay, so very quickly, I will just present some of the questions we have.
Okay.
So I kind of um, we've got questions ready, and I put them in the form of a slide to make it easy to navigate.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question we have here, this is coming from Mercy Oni. As a data scientist, well, actually, before I continue, I noticed that
Okay.
in your presentation, it was as though you had an idea of some of the questions we'll be asking. So I guess some of these questions have been answered. So the ones that you have not yet touched on, then you could just go into those, you could go into answering those questions. So this one says,
All right.
what are the most common tools on the applications in your daily data science workflow, which you've answered already? Then, based on your experience, how would you rate most of the required data science skills, tools, or languages as the top five in order of priority, importance, and application in technical applications? So, just give us an overview of the top five skills you feel are most relevant for data science operations today.
Okay. First, like I said, because of the reality of what the industry look like in Nigeria, one of the skill I would always implore every data scientist or data professional to learn is SQL. I can't overemphasize SQL. So learning SQL is very, very, very key. In as much as, yes, even if you even get to an organization where you are fortunate enough, you have a good team, right? And you won't be heavy on the SQL side of things. But having a basic knowledge of SQL actually help you to understand how relational database work, how data integration work. Because even when you do your Python, your pandas and the likes, you would understand it also. You can easily relate with it well from SQL perspective. So I would rate SQL first. Learning SQL is very, very key. And secondly would be Python. So you need to be able to learn how to use pandas, how to use NumPy, basically data analysis, data exploration, and maybe a little bit of machine learning. Not necessarily advanced stuff, because as much as possible, you may not necessarily do all those fanciful algorithms. Basic of linear regression, logistic regression might just be all you need, because as much as possible, the industry is not like competitive data science. So competitive data science like the likes of Kaggle, Zindi, are mostly focused on accuracy. How high can your metrics go? So that means they're interested if you can score 100% accuracy, fine. But in industry, they are more about explainability. So that means a business will prefer a model that probably has 80% accuracy that you can explain well, that is explainable, than a model that has 100% or 99% accuracy that is just a black box that you can't explain. Right? And that's why most of all these fanciful algorithms kind of have limited application in most of the business domain. Well, they have application, but rarely have application. So that's why you really still use most of your linear regression, logistic regression, as the case may be. So my top priority would be SQL, learning SQL well, learning Python well, and also learn good communication skills. As much as possible, probably maybe volunteer to present somewhere, just to talk. You have to build a good communication skill and ability to present. So PowerPoint skill is also a good skill to learn, even though it's not a technical skill per se. But you do a lot of presentation, you do a lot of communication, and you want to be able to, you should be able to learn, you should be able to talk, right, and express yourself, which is also a skill you need to learn. And so priority will be SQL, Python, good communication skill, and maybe now that analytics engineering is growing, maybe a little bit of DBT. You can learn that. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. And just like you mentioned, I
Thank
think
you.
it's very important. SQL is it's especially important, especially if you are coming from a completely non-tech background where you have no experience in programming. It's usually like a soft landing. I mean, a good place to start.
Exactly.
Yes, because
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
has a lot of language intuition. So, gradually you build confidence in that skill without being scared. And then by the time you're pivoting to
Yeah.
Python, it becomes easier to translate
Yeah.
everything and then make money and all this.
Exactly.
Yes, so thank you very much
Exactly.
for that. Um, Next question here. Okay, I think you've answered this one. The tools and skills needed to acquire in order of relevance and ease of learning and use. This is coming from Marian Amefula. So you've answered this. What do you enjoy most about your job? What is the most interesting and frustrating part? What will you consider the best practices in data science? And what are the biggest areas of opportunity as a data scientist? This is just so many questions coming from Timidayo Mokon.
Okay, so what do I enjoy about my job? Now, I think one thing I enjoy most is the fact that knowing that my role play an important part of the business. That means before they want to do anything, they have to reach out to me. We want to understand how the data is doing. Or let's even assume whatever ideas, whatever strategy or decision making that is being made, let's say a new product was launched, it will still boil down, it will still revolve around me that, okay, fine, what's the impact of this thing we've done? Because there has to be a way to measure and track the KPIs and everything that that's gone into the whole product. So I enjoy that part, knowing that basically I'm actually critical in the business workflow, as well as also knowing that I'm answering questions. I'm answering questions that the business needs to support what they need to do. Now, the most frustrating part of the job is trying to best managing stakeholders. Second is basically coming up with the right approach to solve your problem. Because most of the time, the answer you need for your problem will not be on Stack Overflow. That means one of the skills you have to learn is problem solving. So if they ask you and say, okay, fine, this product that we just launched what's the impact on this and this? How do you frame and craft out the right question to ask the data? So they will just come up with what they're interested in. You have to be the one to know how to craft out the right question you need to ask the data, as well as how do you even go about getting those answers out. So trust me, it can be frustrating and also interesting. So you can go hours trying to think through what the problem is, how to come up with the problem, and all of those things. So yes, that can be frustrating. The problem will be times I'll try and Google some things on Stack Overflow, I won't see it. Then the moment what I'm looking for is not on Stack Overflow, I know I'm on my own. That means I need to find a way to think through the problem and come up with a solution. So yes, that can be frustrating, and that also can be interesting, because the moment you're able to break and crack that problem, then you've learned. You've also built competence. Now, what would I consider the best practice in data science? Well, I think it's not going to be generic. It's industry specific, and is also dependent on the data maturity of the industry. So that means now during my stay while working at Deloitte in the consulting space, now I was privileged to work with a couple of different organizations, the financial industry, major tier 1 bank here in Nigeria, the telcos, and even the oil and gas. Now, what I often see is the fact that many actually don't have data, they don't have good data literacy. Now, many want to enjoy the value data bring, the whole value proposition that can be harnessed and gleaned from data. But the reality is not many of them actually have the right data culture, right? And that's why I would say the best practice first is to ensure that the right data culture are in place. And that's why if you're fortunate to be in any organization, before you dive into, now I've seen someone reach out to me and say, okay, fine, he just got a new job and fortunately and unfortunately for him, he's the only data scientist. He doesn't know where to start. You want to start building machine learning and the likes. And I tell you, now you can't start out from building machine learning and all this, even though it's very important, but you need to ensure that you put the right data strategy in place. You want to ensure that you put the right data process. You want to ensure that people, the whole organization see data as a business asset. And that's why it takes a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to do a lot of education, a lot of orientation, a lot of communication. And that's why the best practice is ensure your pyramid, the problem in the pyramid is solved. Once that is solved, then you can start enjoying all the use cases that is specific to the organization that you are fortunate to work in. Now, what are the biggest areas of opportunity as a data scientist? Now, you can explore, like I said, while ending my slide, about the future of data science. Now, the future of data science is that in the coming years, organizations will solve their infrastructure need. And once they solve their infrastructure need, and that's why it seems as though they need data scientists that have adjacent skills of a little bit of some data engineering skill, basic data engineering skill, and that's where analytics engineering comes in. So you as a data scientist can now work as a data engineer, basically, right? So the future, the biggest area basically is there are a lot of industry you can explore. Any industry that is generating data is where a data scientist can work. And that's why I tell people that data science is actually a tool that can be integrated into any industry. Now, I once read somewhere where I think it was on Forbes that says that every organization actually have data in their future, and every organization will end up becoming data-driven. Now, what does that mean? Now, currently, many organizations may not be data-driven yet. They might still be doing their stuff, their business, the normal way they've been doing it. They probably are generating data. There's no organization that is not actually not generating data, whether health, whether finance. Think about any of those organizations. They are all generating data. The question is, are they maximizing and getting insight out of that data to support their business? Which can be either yes or no. Now, if it's a no, that means it's going to be a journey. So as organizations decide to move from the traditional way of doing things to become data-driven, that means they now want to start out of the data that they're generating. There will now be need for folks like you and myself that are able to help them glean insight out of that data. Now, just to point out this, because just to answer the question around the biggest area of opportunity are data scientists. Now, they are basically what is called the 5 building block for any data-driven organization. So think about any organization that is data-driven. Think about the FANGs, the Facebook, the Amazon, the Netflix, the Google, or any organization at all that you can say this organization is data-driven. They are gleaning insight out of their data to support their decision, to come up with new product and all of those things. This organization have this 5 building block. They have, number one, they have the right data strategy. They have the right strategy in place. They have the right infrastructure in place to support data collection. So they have the right data strategy. They have the right infrastructure. They have data. They have the right processes in place to collect the right kind of data. So I mentioned 4. The last piece of the puzzle, which any data organization always have. So even if they have the right data strategy, they have the right infrastructure, they have the right data, they have the right processes in place, they have talent, they have people or human resource that are able to glean insight out of those data that they've generated. And that's why all of these organizations have data scientists, data analysts, and whatever the data professional is. And that's why your limitation as a data professional is whatever industry you want to limit yourself to. And that's why there's actually no limitation. So think about any industry, any area you want to explore as a data scientist, you can actually explore. I've been privileged to work in the supply chain industry. I've worked in consulting space, and I'm currently in the fintech space. If tomorrow I decide to probably go into the oil and gas, I think I definitely can fit in. So there's no limitation. I hope that answers your question.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
It answered most of the questions. Thank you very much. It's very, very enlightening so far. I really appreciate you, brother. Zion, please, can I just ask this question? Permit me, please. Okay, please. At the moment, currently in Nigeria, what's the salary range for different categories of data science expertise?
Okay, so now salary range is actually, it's a function of many things, truth be told. It's a function of expertise, experience, and what you can command. And that's where your negotiation skill come in, right? But for an entry-level role, I think an entry-level role should be within the range of, say, 250 to 300 for a tech company, right? But let's say for other non-tech companies, should be probably around the range of, say, 180 to maybe 220 and the likes. But that's for entry-level role. But anything above entry-level role, you'll be the one to command to negotiate your pay. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Noted. Thank you.
This question. All right, so let's move on to the next one. How do you handle bottleneck challenges during a data science project? What keeps you going in your career? I've heard that most people start and at one point they just give up and major into something else. This is coming from Taiwo Olufunke Pashola.
Yeah, that's actually very, very true. And
I can't hear him anymore.
Yes, it seems his network is a little down. So, Poyemi, can you hear me? I think he's having internet issues.
Yes, we will too.
Okay. So, while waiting for him to get back, there's some messages here that are coming in the chat. If there's still time, I'll try to push them to him so that he can answer them. So, I hope we're enjoying the session so far.
Yeah. Yes, it's really
Super
nice.
well.
And this session is a blast.
It's the best for me so far.
It's good to have him. He's such a great guy.
I think it's like a different push and motivation.
Yeah.
To see someone that.
Okay,
Apologies.
no problem, sir. You're welcome. So,
Yeah, apologies. Yeah, so like I was saying, that's why I ended my presentation by saying it's a marathon, not a sprint, because I can relate 100% how at a point in your learning journey, liturgy will set in. You won't feel like that days will be like, you are probably not seeing the impact of what you're learning, or it's getting a bit difficult, or it's looking as though you are not understanding what you're learning. And someone once said that difficult, that's actually when the actual learning process is taking place. So the day I read that kind of helped me. That I know that the moment I'm getting to that apex where it seems as though everything is becoming complicated, it seems as though I'm not understanding anything again, then that's actually when the learning process is happening. So which is why I'll do well not to give up at that point. That one thing that's actually helped me, which is why I mentioned that in during my journey, is the fact that you leverage on community. Community would help you a lot because you are learning together. You are in that journey with other enthusiasts, other professionals. So you are not alone. It's easy for you to give up alone. But if you're in a community whereby you started out together with someone and probably the person worked on something and posted it on the group that, oh guys, I just worked on this project. that alone would motivate you. It will intimidate you, to motivate you and inspire you that, oh, I can do this too, right? And that's basically what has helped me. So I'm in a couple of data community, right? And I also founded one just to also help a couple of people. So one of the things that's helped me is what keep me going in my learning journey, because trust me, I still keep learning every day. I still keep reading books. I still keep taking courses, and I know it can get tiring. It can actually be frustrating. I agree to that. Is I join community of people. Probably if I want to learn a new stuff, I might reach out to people and say, okay, fine, I want to learn this stuff. Do I have anybody that want to join me? Let's probably go on a 30 days or 60 days challenge together. Just more or less give me that energy so that I'm not alone. So, and most of the time I see people and say, okay, fine, I can reach out and say, okay, fine, I want to start a new learning journey, but I don't want to start alone. I want people that will start with me. And I'll see people that will volunteer, okay, fine. We may not necessarily be learning the same thing, but because we are learning together, it kind of helped me to keep going. And that kind of more or less form like an accountability framework for me. And that's actually how to handle. So in terms of bottleneck, one of the ways to help yourself is when you have any bottleneck, don't sit on it, reach out. And that's also where community also help. If I encounter any issue today, before I go on Google or Stack Overflow or anything, I drop it on the community. Because it's possible someone in the community have encountered that kind of a challenge or has a resource that can help me to solve that problem. So instead of wasting all my time going on Google trying to go on research and all of those things, that will save me time. But in an advent or an instant where nobody has probably encountered that problem or nobody has answer to my problem, then I can now go ahead and start my research. So you want to reach out to people once you face any bottleneck, basically.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's great. Can you tell us about a successful project you worked on and what impact it made to the company? This is coming from Isha Kumar.
Okay. I'll talk from my previous organization. I work in a couple and my current. So in my current, well, I'm building the whole infrastructure, 90% completed. And the major impact it's going to have is there will be more data available for analysis, and the response rate of dashboard will be very fast. So before I joined, the response rate of dashboard probably takes like 2-3 minutes, which can actually be a pain for any stakeholder for them to get new insight. So now, the data warehouse, a response time for a request can take less than 5 seconds, and definitely as expected. So that's one project. Another project is I worked on a retention project, basically to understand a churn retention analysis, just to understand customers that have used us in the past and stopped using our products, as well as to understand if there's a pattern, things we can learn from them to be able to target those that are probably in that phase of churning out currently, so as to come up with like a targeted campaign for them. So that's like one of the projects I've kind of successfully. The impact of that is going to increase our customer acquisition. That means because churn is not a good thing to the business. You don't want your customer to stop using your products. You want them to continue to use your products, right? So, which is one of the impacts that kind of have.
Okay, that's beautiful. Moving on, this question says, with the advent of technology, we have had several job roles and careers become extinct. In 10 to 15 years from now, several job roles will vanish with the rise of AI. In light of all this, where do you see data science 20 years from now?
Well, 20 years from now look a bit distant, right? Wow. But like I said, during my last slide on the future of AI, I explained how that a lot of organizations are still in the awareness and exploration phase. That's the reality. A lot of organizations are still in the awareness and exploration phase. Maybe only the likes of the FANGs, the big tech companies that you say at that transformation space, the likes of Facebook, Amazon. But truth be told, how many of those big tech companies do we have? They're probably in the minority. The big tech companies are in the minority, as against the majority of organization that we have who definitely want to be data driven. And if majority of all those organizations that are not big tech are still in their awareness and exploration phase, that means few years, let's say 5-10 years, definitely new roles will evolve, because all of your machine learning algorithm, your feature selection, your feature engineering will become automated. And that's why you're probably not talking about AutoML. But most importantly, having an analytical skill is something that can't go into extinction. Only that it could just get revamped. It will probably take a new shape. And that's why a new role like, say, analytics engineering is growing just to solve another problem. So the same way too, other new roles will evolve from what we currently have. And that's why your skill as a data professional now will definitely always be valued, will definitely always be needed. So I see data science role be on the increase in the coming years.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I have a question that I feel will help, and I want to quickly ask that before I forget. So I was just thinking as you were talking, as you were saying some of these things. Now we are seeing the rise of analytics engineering, and you've talked a couple of times about it, even in your posts on LinkedIn. And we see a lot of efforts that are emerging around, building a modern cloud data platform. And so I was looking at, what do you consider, from what you've observed so far, as best practices for adopting a cloud data platform for those who want to, start getting a modern data stack in place? So from what you've observed so far, what do you think you can say about that?
Okay. So in adopting cloud data warehouse, which is basically one of the problem the cloud data warehouse, which is solving, cloud computing generally, and Google, BigQuery, GCP, and Azure, one of the things they are solving basically is to help organizations kickstart their tech journey very fast, because that means they won't. One of the major challenge traditional organizations face before the advent of all this cloud infrastructure is that building any infrastructure requires a lot of capital investment. A lot of money needs to be invested in talking about building a data center and all of those things. But now the cloud infrastructure has disrupted that. So that means any organization, no matter how small the organization is, they can build an infrastructure at a go and pay as they use. And that's just the whole philosophy around cloud infrastructure. But now bringing it down to the old data infrastructure. Now, from my explanation on the AI hierarchy of need, because many organizations don't have the right infrastructure in place, right? And in order for them to start saying they want to build a data infrastructure in-house on-prem, that will require a lot of money, right? Which is why cloud infrastructure kind of is cost effective for them. So they can easily build a cloud infrastructure at minimal cost. So what are the best practices? The best practice basically is the fact that having measures in place that will support data flow. So what do I mean by data flow? All the data sources that organization currently have, let's say your transactional database, all your data sources from, let's say, from your web data, your mobile app data, all the different data sources. How do they move from where they are to where they will be needed for analytics? Because whatever they currently are, you can't use them for any analytics. So you need to find a way to migrate them from different sources to a particular data warehouse. And how do you do that? Now, most of the time, that's like most of the role of the data engineers that build what is called custom data pipelines to do that data migration or data replication. But now, the whole analytics engineering now make it easy such that you don't necessarily have to build custom data pipelines. You don't have to write ad hoc ETL code to do all the data replication, right? There are now tools available for use that you can use with little to no technical details. All you need to use is connect them, set it up, connect your source to those tools, and you're able to replicate your data to your data warehouse. You select your destination, right? But now the only challenge is most of these tools are paid. So it's a matter of educating your stakeholders and saying, okay, fine, this is a tool we are going to use to do our data replication, but now it's a paid service. But even though currently I help that I'm using an open source tool for my data injection, so which also save my organization costs. So they're not paying for that tool. It's open source, and I do all my data injection. So the whole data infrastructure is okay, fine. How do I move data from one source to another source to my destination, which is my cloud data warehouse, which can be whether GCP, AWS, or Azure. So there's a tool that does that for you. Now that my data is in my data warehouse or my data lake, how do I transform that data to make it ready for use for the end user? My end user can either be a data scientist, a data analyst, or my stakeholder in the form of like an Excel report. How do they be able to use the data? Don't forget, the data that is coming from your source, they are messy. You need to find a way to transform the data. And that's where your data transformation tool comes in, which is what the DBT is going to do for you before you go ahead to now start building your dashboard, your data modeling. So the whole data analytics engineering is more or less making the work a bit easier and fast-paced for organizations to be able to kickstart their data journey with limited resources, basically.
Okay, that's awesome. I think some of these points are very important, and like you mentioned, one of the challenges that some organizations will face, even after getting platforms in place, is getting the right persons or people to handle this infrastructure, which I think is the reason why we are seeing the rise of tools like Snowflake and some of these platforms, so that you can now become cloud agnostic. You don't need to now specifically think of all the Azure with Google Cloud or Azure or AWS. Right in Snowflake, you can just organize your whole data. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Let me go into the next question. I think we have like 3 questions left.
And just to also add, apologies for interjecting. And just to also add, that's also why I would also advise any data, after learning all the necessary stuff, your machine learning and the likes, a basic knowledge of cloud infrastructure will also be good. So let's assume, and that's why all of this cloud infrastructure, they give you free credit for the first time user. So you want to try and see, you want to create a real life scenario for yourself. So let's assume, how do you create your machine learning model? Let's say you want to pull in your data from GCP. GCP probably have a lot of public data set available. You get a real life data set, which is where a portfolio and a project comes in. So you want to create that scenario and say, okay, fine, I want to work on a project that I'll be extracting my data from, let's say, Google BigQuery, and I'll be building my machine learning model from the data that is coming, not a data that is coming from an Excel spreadsheet. Because in real life, your data will not be coming from an Excel spreadsheet. Your data that will be bringing your machine learning model will not be a CSV file. It will be sitting from somewhere. But learning how to build a machine learning from a CSV file is somewhere to start with. But as a portfolio to build, that could probably be a pet project you want to work on, just to simulate that real life scenario for yourself.
Yes, exactly. That's very important. Okay, so this question from Lillian says, how do I know I've gotten the least required knowledge to start applying for a data science analyst job? Before I allow you to answer that, I noticed a lot of beginners in data science. There's this challenge of, after learning some skills, that's confidence. They are not sure whether they have reached that level of confidence yet to start applying for jobs. And sometimes even when they have built a certain level of confidence and they apply for a role and they get rejected, that has a way of really knocking them down. And so to go about it, you begin to ask yourself questions like, is it that I'm not good enough? Probably I've not learned certain skills. So I think this kind of question is very important. So let me just hear from you.
That's very true. Now the first thing I tell people is, prepare your mind for rejection. Build a shock absorber for rejection. Now, when I was starting out, I already made up my mind that what's the worst that can happen if I apply for a job is they reject me, right? Or they ghost me, they won't reply. But at least, who knows? That may be the golden opportunity. So prepare your mind for rejection. So just prepare your mind beforehand that you are going to get rejected. Now, I'm not exaggerating. On average, when I started out, I was getting at least 10 rejection per week. You probably will ask me, well, where was I getting all the jobs I was applying for? I was applying every year. Trust me. Anyway, I see anything called data analyst, whether I have the full requirement and the likes, right? I was just shooting my shot. I was applying. But maybe I probably would have been more strategic now, which is learn the fundamental. If I probably want to start now again, will be once you've learned the fundamental well, you've learned your SQL, you've learned your Python. One way to feel confident is you work on a project. At least, let's say 2 good projects. Work on a project that showcase the skill you've learned. So let's say you work on SQL now. You've learned SQL. There are a lot of ways you can showcase your skill on SQL, probably through LeetCode or HackerRank, or I think Danima on LinkedIn has an SQL challenge. Now, if you're able to solve some of those challenges, there's a way you build that confidence in you that, if I'm able to solve all of these challenges, I think I've learned this too well, right? So that's one way you can build that confidence, you work on this. So most times, building a project or a portfolio is a way to be able to tell yourself to feel that you are ready to start applying for jobs. So once you've learned the fundamental well, it's not like you've not learned anything, you don't start applying for jobs. I think it doesn't make a lot of sense. You've learned the fundamental well, you worked on some pet projects, maybe 1 or 2 to showcase what you've learned, and you probably write an article about it or blog about it, or just a way to showcase that you've learned some of these tools that you just to showcase to any hiring manager. Because if you just tell an hiring manager that you can use SQL, you can use Python, how will that person believe that you can actually use this thing without a project to showcase? You understand? And that's why once you work on some pet projects, trust me, start applying for job. And let me bust your bubble. Many of the job vacancies that you see out there are unrealistic. I can tell you for a fact. They put out all the skills, they list everything there, whereas probably you only use maybe less than 10% of them on the job. It's always weird. I just ask myself the question, hiring manager, they just go and copy and paste online and just without understanding what the real job really need. I think if I probably will be hiring for my role, let's say my organization want to support, or want to hire someone to support you on what you are doing. Trust me, I probably will just list two skills because that's the only thing you need on the job. If I probably am going to go and list, say, Adobe Spark and all of those things, they lie because you would end up not using all those things. But I really don't know the whole philosophy around all those unnecessary stuff. But what I will just tell you is, once you have the fundamental, you work on some pet projects, let's say 1 or 2, to showcase that you really learned those things. Any data role that you see, keep applying. And at the back of your mind, be ready for rejection. Like, just prepare your mind. Don't get discouraged. Someone once said, in the data world, just be ready for rejection. Prepare your mind that, yes, I'll get a lot of rejection. But the caveat is this: you don't know which opportunity will be the golden one. So that means you don't know the opportunity that would actually be the one that would make you break into the industry. And just to give you comfort, the moment you are able to break into the industry and get your first job, that's all. It's going to be smooth sailing. You will not be the one commanding the job you want to pick, because now you build the expertise. You cannot start, recruiters will not be the one reaching out to you and saying, fine, once you come and join us. But trust me, I won't sugarcoat it. Breaking in as an entry level, as an enthusiast, is very, very difficult. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. So in terms of when you start applying for a job, once you've learned the basic, work on pet project and start applying, be ready for rejection. Don't allow rejection to discourage you. So I tell myself then, the more I get rejection, the more I apply. So as I see you, thank you. You're saying for applying, I'll apply again for another place. So I just keep applying. And it's a different story today.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you very much for that. And I think it's very important too for beginners in the field to understand that, just like you mentioned, a lot of organizations are still in their awareness stage. So when they make all these job posts, it's not as if they know what they want. They don't really know sometimes. So just have an open mind and be prepared for anything. If you get rejected, no problem. Okay, but by the time you land that first role, you're going to realize that it's not as difficult as it appeared in the job ad. And then like
Yeah.
Mr. Koyemi said, from there, it gets easier. Okay, so let me move to the next one. How do you ensure you are continuously growing in your field? This is from Mukami Karebo.
In order to ensure you are continuously growing, the easiest option is subscribe to a lot of newsletter, a lot of blogs. Read. You have to read a lot because you don't want to stay outdated. You don't want to be obsolete. The tech world generally is a fast-paced one. So that means you want to constantly you don't learn new tool per se, but you want to understand what's happening in the global space, right? And the only way you can ensure you are continuously growing is keep a close tab with newsletter. There are a lot of newsletter, let's say Data Science Weekly, Data Analytics Weekly, Towards Data Science. There are a lot of all those things. You can just Google. I'm sure you see all of those global newsletter or subscription or articles you can subscribe to just to keep yourself abreast of what's happening in global space. And you do a lot of reading, basically. And that's just the only way you can ensure you are continuously growing in the space. And you probably also join some global community. There are a lot of them also. If you go on Google and search for global community, you will definitely see a lot of links to join. So that's actually ways to more or less keep growing in that field.
Yes, that's very important. Okay, this one says, how do you see a data set and know for certain that these are the series of questions I should be asking to get the right answers from the data, or this is the right model to use on the data?
Okay, so now there's what is called now in any data science solution or any data project at all, there's always a framework you should have in mind. There are like two major frameworks that is often being adopted to solve any data solution, which is you have the KDD and you have the CRISP-DM framework. But in terms of popularity, the CRISP-DM framework is what is often being used. And what does that mean? Just to answer your question, start out with your problem. So that means you don't just dive into modeling. You don't just dive into data. You start first in understanding the problem you want to solve. Because the moment your problem you want to solve is flawed, the moment you don't have a good grasp of the problem you want to solve, that means you won't be able to know the right kind of data you need to collect and you need to do to be able to solve that kind of a problem. And that's why you have to have a good grasp of a problem you want to solve. An example is this. So an organization needed to solve the problem of attrition. Attrition is, say, people leave an organization, which is normal. But attrition becomes a challenge for the HR professional when the attrition rate is, let's say, very, very high. Let's say people keep leaving. And analysts or data scientists help us, okay, fine. Help us understand why are people leaving, as well as how to mitigate people leaving, or probably to even make prediction on the number of people that will leave in future. Now, that's the problem. So that means you need to understand the problem at times. So that means you won't just dive into, right? The first thing, you probably want to come from a domain point of view. You want to ask the question, just normal understanding of what problem you want to solve. Okay, fine. I want to solve the problem of attrition. Why are people leaving? The next question will be, what kind of data do I think I need to solve that kind of problem? That means I probably need data around, if there's exit interview where people populate data around why they are leaving, if there are data around probably salary range, a lot of those things. So what I'm basically saying is, what would drive the right modeling is your understanding of the problem you want to do. So once you have a good grasp of the problem you want to solve, then you want to ask the question, do I have the right data available to solve that problem? Because there are instances where you want to solve a particular problem where the data is not even available to solve that kind of problem. You would have wasted your time doing an analysis only to figure out and discover that the data that you even have available cannot even solve the problem you want to solve. You want to provide solution to. So, and that's why it's very important and imperative that you start out with the problem or the business issue understanding before you can now move down and say, okay, fine, do I have the data available to solve the problem? If yes, what kind of data do I need to solve that kind of problem? You can now start your analysis and your modeling before you conclude the project. I hope that answers that question for Sophia.
Okay, great. Yes, he says thank you. I just remembered something now. There was in one of the questions you mentioned Danima on LinkedIn. So I just remembered something I posted
Yeah.
today, and then he said something. He said sometimes in his own experience, when analyzing maybe customer data or something like that, he checks, he does predictive modeling, checking when there's no intervention applied on the data, and when there's intervention, maybe from a marketing campaign or marketing
Yeah.
communications. So from the customer behavior, when there's no such intervention, it gets the probability of people responding to the products, to the product offerings. And then when there's an intervention, they see how the customers or users behave, the probability of adoption of whatever product or service. And so they compare those two things. So I wanted to ask you, do you do stuff like that in your daily analytical work?
At the moment, no. Though it's in pipeline. Like I said, so at the moment, I haven't started any core predictive analytics work or modeling. Right. So it's still more of infrastructure side of things and more of descriptive and diagnostic analytics aspect of things. So yes, it's in pipeline. Once the whole infrastructure work is done, then definitely can go all deep dive into a couple of use cases that I have in the pipeline to work on.
Okay. I think that's important. There's a lesson here for you guys. I mean, from what Mr. Koyeme has said here, you see that a lot of time is being spent on infrastructure and getting the processes right before they begin to jump into predictive modeling and all of that. So because
Yeah.
the truth is predictive analytics, machine learning, all those stuff, they are actually solved problems. There's a lot of narrative
Exactly.
on that recently. Those are solved issues. The main issue now is with data quality delivery, which if you can solve that puzzle,
Exactly.
and it
Exactly.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
how long you need to take to solve that problem. But once you solve that
Yeah.
problem, it makes
Yeah.
predictive analytics very efficient and very useful for boosting return on investment for the organization. So,
Exactly.
okay, let me move to the next question. I think this is the last one. Okay, this one is interesting. Who are the people I need to align with in the career path, in this career path to achieve success? This is from Kimberly Peters.
I think you already have the right help and the right hand you need by joining this academy. But like I said, one thing this academy give you is access to industry experts and professionals.
Yeah.
Now, the likes of Mr. Zion understand what is obtainable. That means being part of this kind of academy give you more or less like a mentorship and guidance that you need. So you won't be the one, you won't stress yourself. You probably would just go, you would fly on the wings of your tutor. And session like this, definitely, Mr. Zion understand what's obtainable. We definitely bring in speakers once in a while to guide you, to help you more or less, give you an understanding and perspective to what is obtainable, so as to also stir up your enthusiasm, basically. So you're already in the right place. So I won't say this is what you need. I will say you already have the right set of people you need to align with to be successful. I think just basically to put in the work, because I'm sure you get all the things you need. The only thing is that you have to be the one to put in the work.
Yes, that's amazing. And like you mentioned before, joining communities to help a lot. So once you have all this in place, success is not going to be something difficult or out of reach. Okay, so let me just take two questions from the comments. Okay, I have here. Um, okay, you were mentioned talking about data DBT. So Mercy is asking, is Databricks an example of the DBT pipeline you mentioned?
Databricks is like a form of data warehouse. So there are various data warehouse that you can use. Talk about Databricks, talk about Snowflakes, talk about BigQuery, Redshift. So Databricks is a form of data warehouse. So DBT, so DBT is like a data modeling tool for data transformation.
Yeah.
Another data modeling tool that is also championing that space is Dataform. So Dataform was acquired by Google late last year. So there are basically two major tools that is driving that data transformation space, Dataform and DBT. But DBT is actually kind of leading, right? So which is basically you use DBT to connect to any of your data warehouse. You can use DBT to connect to your Databricks, really to connect to data to any of your BigQuery, whatever the case is in.
Okay, that's great. And I think the other question.
And also just to
okay, continue.
Yeah, so sorry for interjecting. And so for those that probably might be interested in learning DBT, I'm currently hosting a DBT meetup. I'm currently leading the DBT Nigeria meetup, courtesy with our program DBT Global team, Nigeria meetup. So, and I guess I will also be working alongside with Zion. So I'm sure it would give you other update around how the old DBT basically work, how to get started, and all of those things. So you'll get more information relating to that. So
yes. So whatever it is, I'll be getting updates from you, and then I'll share it with them so that they can be part of the meetups. Okay, and then I think the question here, the final question here, you really answered that. Talking about what sector to work in, and like you already mentioned, you can actually be sector agnostic as a data scientist. You don't need to be streamlined to a certain niche. The data science skills can really work across a broad spectrum of industries. So yes, I think that brings us to the end of this session.
Yeah.
Wow, this was an amazing session, really. It was an amazing session. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A pleasure to have you in the meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and apologies for
no problem
for the timing.
We'll be even taking your time. Okay, guys. So I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. So we'll continue in our platforms. Continue on our platforms.
Thank you, sir.